Right now I'm standing in front of the historic Governor's Mansion, which just reopened after an 18-month, $1.3 million restoration. I'm going to go inside and speak with Tim White. He's the curator, and he's going to tell me about this 100-year-old home that housed 19 first families. Tim, what did you learn about the history of the state during the restoration process?
Well, the legislature was very generous, 3 different legislatures, and it reminded me of when the funds were appropriated for the construction of this house in 1904. The legislature told the architect to scale it down twice to save money, but when it was furnished, enough money was provided to choose excellent high-quality furniture and wallpaper and fabrics, and so we were able to do that in this restoration.
Did you find anything that surprised you about the governors that lived here, perhaps that you didn't know?
When the rooms that we've taken back to 1905, you really get more of a feeling of how that first family, the Bryant B. Brooks family, must have reacted to the rooms and lived in the rooms more than you did before the restoration. I think that one of the most telling stories was given to me directly by Melissa Brooks Spurlock. She was one of 4 daughters of Governor Bryant B. Brooks, and I called her to ask her which bedroom she had, and there were originally 6 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, and without missing a beat, she said that she and her older sister Lena had the northeast bedroom, and they chose that bedroom because they had brought their pet pony down from the V-Bar V. Governor Brooks had brought his prize horse. They were quartered in the carriage house, and they could hear their pet pony, and the pony could hear them from that 2nd northeast bedroom.
19 first families lived here, and also there were a number of guests that at least stopped by here that are very notable. Can you talk about some of those people that came through?
William Jennings Bryan was, perennial presidential candidate, and he visited a few times, in the early, 1915. President and Mrs. Harry Truman and their daughter Mary Margaret were luncheon guests, hosted by Governor and Mrs. Lester C. Hunt, and their daughter Mary Margaret was with them. Vice President Richard Nixon was a house guest of the Hathaways when he was running for president the first time. And Lyndon Johnson was a guest, not overnight guest, but a guest of the Hickeys. And James Michener, the author, was a guest of the Hathaways, to name a few.
$1 million to restore this mansion. Do you think that was money well spent? And what do you think that people can learn from this mansion and because of that money that was spent here?
Well, the mansion always received tender, loving care. I mean, the state owned it, the state took care of it, and it was always well maintained. But there are things such as dry rot that occur in old wood, even wood that has been maintained. And so there's just certain things that have to be done at some point. And because this is the only historic house museum in Cheyenne, and because it's one of the older houses in Cheyenne, we tore down so many of the houses that were built in the 1880s by the cattle barons that were on Capitol Avenue and Cary Avenue. And those are all gone, and now it's business. So this is an older house in Cheyenne, and because it reflects the entire history of Wyoming, I think it's very prudent that it was restored.
There's a lot of beautiful furniture and carpeting and wallpaper here that is very authentic to the period that you're trying to represent. Was it difficult to track that down?
In some cases it was. Like the library and the fireplace bedroom we took back to 1905, and there's such an interest in restoration to that era and before that there are a lot of products available. But when people aren't restoring rooms to 1937, so that was really the challenge to find.
Did you have to do a lot of research to find out what would be authentic?
Well, fortunately, we had a set of photographs of all the main rooms on the first floor from 1915 showing the original furniture. And then after the 1937 refurbishment, a local photographer went through and took pictures. So we had those to follow. So it was just a matter of finding similar fabrics. And even though both sets of photos are black and white, there was a newspaper article that described the colors in the rooms. So that was very helpful to have that.
For people who visited the mansion before the restoration, it would be good for them to come back, I guess, because there's a lot of new things to see. Is that right?
That's right, Renny. You know, the breakfast room here was added in 1937, and the table and chairs that were originally there were used for several years, and then fortunately they were put into Wyoming State Museum storage. So we were able to reintroduce that dinette set. In the dining room, just recently, the daughter-in-law of Governor Leslie Miller and Governor Miller's grandson donated a beautiful Sheffield covered venison tray that actually dates from 1820 and was given to Governor Miller on January 1st, 1939, the day he left office, and it's all inscribed and to that effect. This corner cabinet here behind me was one of several pieces that were taken to the new governor's residence in 1976. The Freudenthals returned this. Just before the restoration and the closure, First Lady Sherry Geringer returned the pair of end tables and the Chinese soapstone lamps that are in the room. And this whole process of returning things really began with Casey Hirschler, who returned a pair of upholstered Tom Molesworth chairs that were in the governor's den. That room reflects the Millward Simpson administration, 1955 to 59.
Two of the governors that lived here are still alive. Have they been by to visit?
Actually, they have. First Lady Wynne Hickey was here on the day it reopened, Saturday, June 11th. Governor Hathaway was at the Centennial Dinner the night before. The Hansons, Cliff and Martha Hanson, were at both events here at the ribbon cutting. And then several descendants of former governors and first ladies were also in attendance.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time today, and I really hope a lot of people will come down from around the state and visit you and see this important icon.
Thank you, Renny.